I'm excited. This will be great.
Nervous. Okay, all right. So we are in business. Hey, Hadassah.
Hey.
I'm so excited that we could do this together live, and we, got rid of the other video. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that by yourself, and I wasn't with you. I felt so bad for you.
It's all right. I was like, I'm trying to rush it, and then trying to get out, and I just didn't really get out everything that I needed to, but it's okay now because we totally got served some tech ideas. So, and yeah, we needed help.
Yeah, so we're just bypassing Facebook Live because obviously they have problems, and we're going to use Zoom, and Zoom is incredible. So let's go ahead and jump in, and we're just going to kind of start from the beginning because this video is going to be shared. So we're going to pretend that other video didn't happen and nobody has heard your story, okay?
Right.
So let me just go into real quick. I'm going to give Hadassah 99% of the platform here, but just how we know each other. Hadassah was friends with my brother, Harold Atkins, who passed away from an overdose, a drug overdose in 2015. And Hadassah knew him and reached out to me after he passed away. And she was like, how can I help? At the time when she connected with me, I was doing a fundraiser, trying to build a partnership between Big Brothers Big Sisters and Washington County Children's Services. And so Hadassah was like, I would love to bake cookies for that. Let me know how I can help you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this girl. And just through that, I discovered that she was in a foster home. Just a little bit of her story, and I'm not going to share her story, that's hers to tell, but she was in a foster home when I met her, and we actually hung out a few times. She came to my house. I went to her foster home. I fell in love with this girl. She's amazing. And actually, I forgot to mention, at my brother's memorial, I spoke, and Hadassah later told me that she rededicated her life to the Lord at his memorial. And so that is she's super special to me, even just because of that. So that's how I know Hadassah, and we've obviously stayed in touch all of these years. And so when things started to spiral downward in her life, and she was sharing me little bits and pieces, allowing me to peek in just a little bit, but probably because of just shame and stuff, obviously she didn't tell me everything, but I could see that things were going downhill, and it was very disheartening. So why don't we go ahead, Hadassah, and do what we talked about earlier. Why don't you share kind of what happened after you left the foster home and kind of what led you in to everything that happened?
Right. So after I left the foster home, I did have Braxton for a little while, but I moved into a house, and I ended up losing that house, and eventually losing Braxton. Actually, I gave him to his dad because I knew that would be the best place for him to be. But before I lost my house, before I even got my house, I was with one of my friends, and we were living in her 2-bedroom apartment. And, I would help her out. I'd clean, cook, try to pay what I could. I was working at a Papa John's at the time, and I ended up quitting my job. So after I ran out of money, me and her were struggling to feed our kids. I mean, Braxton never went without, so we never let it get to that point. We are never going to let it get to that point. So one night we were running low on money, and she said, well, let's just go to the dance club and just start dancing. And at first I was like, I'm not okay with this. This is really crazy. This is so out of character for me at 18. And I went ahead and I went with her that night. And that's where my journey began in the dancing industry as an exotic dancer. I made $100 immediately the first night that I started working there. And so money became an addiction. Being able to have stability whenever I needed it, and not having to worry where I'm getting my son's next meal at, or where I'm getting, my lodging for the day or night, or how am I going to pay the bills. it was never an issue because I knew that I could just fall back on going to a dance club and selling the idea of sex. And you know, and it really went out to hurt me in the long run. I wasn't a heavy drug user at that point. I think I drank, and I did smoke marijuana. And also, I started hanging out with the wrong crowd, you know. So I ended up losing my house, and Braxton went with his father to live with his dad. He still lives with his dad now, and I'm perfectly okay with that. And you know, I ran into this woman that I was dancing with for the last year, and she asked me to come hang out with her one night, with her and her quote unquote boyfriend. And so we went out, and they literally were like shoving drugs in my face all the time, getting me hooked on ecstasy and cocaine and multiple other things. And so that's when the grooming process started and began on me. He was a trafficker, and she knew he was a trafficker, but they didn't tell me. And I was 19, and I was very naive. So the grooming process began with giving me as much drugs. They could drug me up with anything they could, with whether that be acid, marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, especially ecstasy. It was very odd that somebody would be handing me, and at the time I didn't think about it, but somebody would be literally handing me over hundreds of dollars worth of drugs to do. And I didn't understand why I was getting it for free. I was just like, wow, you know, I'm going to have fun. And this is the lifestyle I'm going to live. And so, you know, I started hanging out, and they started introducing me to methamphetamine, which I dabbled with it then, not very often. I think I did it maybe 3 times at that time in my life, and I did not like it. But they would start talking about murdering people, and it was very scary. And actually, the male, he showed me a video. He held up a video, and he showed me this video of him on the news in a murder newscast story. And he looked at me and said, "This is how you get away with murder." And so immediately, I'm convinced that this couple is able to do some pretty dangerous things to me. But I stayed around, and I don't know how to explain why I stayed around. It was almost like a sense of security, and it was almost like if I left, I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And so I started becoming comfortable in that situation. They were trying to get me hooked on drugs, so I'd be reliant on them. And it came to the point where I was really sick of living that life, and I said, well, you know, I just want to make a couple $1,000s, get a car, and then I promise I'll get my life together. And that's what I told myself. You know, and at 19, I think I can rule the world, and I think that I can just I don't know, get no help and just, you know, do it on my own. And I'm stubborn. I don't like asking for help. I hated asking for help. Usually I was the one handing out money to people because I would have the money to do that as a dancer. Being able to help, I would multiple different occasions hand out money to my friends that were struggling with their bills and couldn't afford their car payments. And you know, I didn't like the idea of being broke. So they offered to take me down to Texas, where I was supposed to be going down there to dance. Well, I had $1,000 that I took down there with me, expecting to bring a few thousand back. And what happened was I couldn't work anywhere because I didn't bring my Social Security card. So now the man, he went to go see his bondsman, and so his bond was very high, and so I guess I was kind of the last resort. He took me, and I'm gonna be very detailed on this part because it's one of my very first memories of trafficking, and how I knew that.
Yeah, and let me just interrupt you. If you guys have children in the room, we just ask that you have them leave the room just so they're not having to hear any of this. So
Right.
I didn't say that. So
no, you're good. So he took me into the bonds man's office, and I had a little sundress on and I had shorts on, thank goodness, underneath before I even left. And I just remember I was probably standing like this, and the woman turned me around like this and just kind of showed me off like I was property, like kind of like, take your bidding, do you like what you see? And she ended up lifting up my dress, but like I said, thank God I had shorts on underneath. And he just kind of looked me up and down and was very interested, and I kept telling Angel and them, oops, I just gave a name, oh well, that I wasn't comfortable with any of that stuff. And they still didn't care. They were mad because I wasn't making them any money. And because I wasn't making them any money, I was becoming useless to them. So then they tried to get me to walk the streets, and I wouldn't do that. And they left me stranded in Texas at 19 years old on the street. And as a 19-year-old in Houston, Texas, single female, it's very, very, very dangerous. And so I think the first 2 days by myself, I think I was held, I had a gun pointed at me. This couple that said they were going to help me ended up trying to traffic me. I know there's a fashion trend going around with the little collars. Well, that is, those collars are a sign that you have an owner. And so this couple would, try to act like they were dressing me up to make me look pretty and stuff. But what I didn't know is that they were planning on trafficking me. And they would have me wear these collars, and I thought it was all for fashion until I'm going to cut to a part until the day that I was thrown out on the street and told that I was going to be taught how to be a quote unquote bulldog out on the street. And so I would see many other women walking the street, and they had to have collars around their necks. And that was basically a way to say that you were owned by someone and that you were someone's property. And when you were walking the streets, you had to look down at the ground. You weren't allowed to look up at other people, at other men, other traffickers, because if you did, that meant that you were going to pay them instead of your abuser. And so, I just remember waking up at 7 a.m. every morning and working until midnight, and it just became normal.
This was all in the first time you were in Texas?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I didn't know that part of it.
Mm-hmm. And it just became normal. And so I got sick of it. My mom kept bugging and calling me, and finally I was ready to drop my pride and say, Mom, I'm ready to come home. And so I went home, and nothing changed. I was still the same, but I was even more broken. I was suffering from PTSD and a lot of other mental health issues, a lot of depression. And I never told anybody, maybe but a few friends, about what happened to me. I wouldn't talk to my mom about it. And I think my mom had an idea, but she didn't know how to come about and talk to me about it, because it's not easy to talk about. And so sadly, a few months later, I started dancing again. It didn't take me long to hit that cycle again of poverty and wanting to be stable. And money just always was, it was kind of pounded in my head that money was stability, because that is what my abuser taught me, is money is stability. Money is the only thing that is going to get you where you need to be and where you want to be and get you what you want.
And at this point, you still, and I've heard other girls talk about this, you still had the illusion, if you will, that you were in control. So yeah, you still absolutely thought, I'm in control, I am saying what's happening here, and then You lost control.
Absolutely. It was a highly manipulative situation. You feel in control, but you're not in control. You're absolutely not in control. You think you are, but you're not. So later on, a few months later, sad to say, I returned to my abuser. The guy that took me down to Texas in the first place, he said, "Why didn't you come back down here? I'm not with that girl anymore. I promise nothing bad will happen to you. It was all her." And so, I'm in love with this guy, right? And
And this is the guy you mentioned before. This is not the one that took your phone and
right. This isn't.
Okay.
And so, he said this time we're just gonna hang out. He's gonna be my boyfriend. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can trust this. And I don't know, I'm gonna go see him. So I get down there and things go awfully, terribly, sickeningly wrong. It's 100 times worse. And they say this, once you go back out there, once you've been in there before, it gets worse. There's no getting better. And so my situation ended up getting worse. My abuser took my phone, would not let me contact my mom, would not let me have any contact with anybody, actually. And at this point, was taking me to New Orleans on Bourbon Street.
Let me interrupt. So while this is all happening to Hadassah, in our world, in her family's and in my world, I would say it was probably about 3 days or 4 days into the ordeal that we realized that there was something wrong. Like nobody could really get a hold of you. I think that the trafficker actually messaged people, but they knew they were sending me screenshots of it, and they're like, "This is not Hadassah, that something is wrong." And so I immediately was like, this sounds like, just from my limited experience at that point with human trafficking, I thought this sounds like a trafficking situation. And so I dug, her family was digging, and I think it was maybe, I don't know, 24, 48 hours, I was confident that she was in Texas and very likely in Houston. And so then I think we're talking Homeland Security was getting involved, Parkersburg police, then the Houston police, Dallas police, my friends in Houston, Texas, Kat French, amazing, Hadassah, loves
Yes.
Kat French. And then another friend, Rivka, she's probably watching this video, with her organization, just amazing. We just began the 20-something day insanity of staying up till 2 and 4 in the morning looking for her. And I remember I was talking to strip club owners, and I think they were I don't even know, people were giving me numbers. I remember you probably don't know this, Hadassah, but I was actually talking to dancers from different clubs in Houston around the Bissonnette, and they were giving me names and numbers of individuals that may have information about you. So I would be talking to these men, and I have no idea to this day who they were, but they gave me some good information. One individual actually knew and gave me some good info, and then I ended up talking to your original abuser several times on the phone. He gave me very limited but a little bit of information, and we were able to find out who had her, what his vehicle was. So all of this is happening while Hadassah is going through what she's going through. So pick up where you left off, took your phone to New Orleans, and what happened?
Oh yeah. So then they realized that people were noticing that I wasn't responding, and that if I was responding, it wasn't how I would usually respond. So he immediately was trying to set me up a hair appointment to go dye my hair completely blonde. And we went to the store, and I don't know if you remember this, Rebecca, when I came to your house and I had those blue collared contacts, and I would not let them go for the longest time. Well, I had this really weird attachment to them, but beyond that, he would have me wear blue collared contacts, and that was kind of a way of, I guess, disguising myself. But I would ask him if I could talk to my family, and he would tell me no, or he just wouldn't give me an answer and just flat out ignore me. So at this point, we're in New Orleans on Bourbon Street, and I'm kind of being used as bait. So this gentleman with I think it was an $11,000 Rolex watch on, like the newest iPhone, I think was an iPhone 8 at the time, and some money or something, started talking to me. And one of his girls, who's a lot bigger than me, and has been with him a lot longer than me, urged me to get a room with him. So I did, and she was in the room with us. And she started mixing his drink, and I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but I guess she put a date rape drug in his drink. And so I remember me trying to get him to drink, but I didn't want to force it on him. And so she got mad at me because we were about to lose $11,000. At that point, I didn't understand what was going on. I mean, I do now because it was explained after the fact. But I was in the motel bathroom, and she grabbed me right here by my throat and pushed me up against the bathroom wall and took alcohol and poured it down my throat. And she said, "This is how you make someone drink." And so after that, I made sure the guy drank the drink, because I physically just got threatened. And I was honestly terrified at that point. And he drank the drink, and he started acting real funny. And immediately I knew that she drugged him with something after he started acting that weird after just one little cup of alcohol. And he completely passed out. He was naked on the bed. And I just remember sitting there watching her take the watch off of his hand, and him just going in and out of consciousness. And it was awful. She left me in the room, I think, alone with him for about 40 minutes while he was passed out. I was in shock. I couldn't move. Like, I literally could not move. I was frozen. Finally, 45 minutes later, I was able to get out of that hotel and went into a car, and went into the car with her and him. And, we rode off after that. But I remember being just awfully flippin' terrified. It was that's one of my worst memories, is doing that to somebody. That's my biggest regret. And I still think about this guy sometimes. I wonder how he's doing nowadays, because I'm pretty sure it was probably pretty traumatic for him. Not saying that he was in the best. He was trying to buy a girl, for goodness sakes, but that doesn't matter. He still got drugged and robbed, and that's very traumatic.
And they had taken you, you mentioned New Orleans, but he took you multiple places. I mean, they were constantly moving you around. And I remember, because we figured out a burner phone. No, originally we were tracking your phone, and every once in a while he would turn it on. So your phone actually pinged in New Orleans, but that was the only place your phone pinged outside of Texas. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And the burner phone, which we figured out somehow, it was like 2 years ago, so my memory, but like I remember we started to be able to track that phone.
Right.
They had you in multiple places, and yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm sure that was, you never knew where you were going.
Right. Absolutely. I had no clue. It's just kind of like getting a car, and you're just going to deal with wherever we're at. And eventually their plan was I was going to be going to Las Vegas. I don't know if I ever actually told you that. But I got out before that happened. There was also a time where my abuser was putting gasoline in his car, and I was smoking a cigarette, and he took the gasoline pump and turned it and sprayed me with gasoline. And I had to strip down in the parking lot of the gas station. I had to take off all my clothes because they were soaked with gasoline, and it was humiliating. And when we got back to the hotel, I got in the shower, and I heard banging and tussling and rustling and screaming, and a girl screaming in there. And it was one of the girls, and he was beating on her. And I remember just sitting in the shower until things got quiet. And then I finally got out of the shower, and I went out, and she was hiding under the blankets, and she was bleeding. And she just peeked her head up and asked me if I'd get her a tissue, and I did. I was also trafficked in Memphis, Tennessee, Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, and some other places that I don't even remember. And so my life was just a living, I mean, let's be honest, a living hell.
Can you share a little bit about the dynamics, if you're comfortable? And always feel free. I told Hadassah earlier, if you feel like you cannot answer a question, she is free to say, I'm uncomfortable answering that. But I think this will be okay. Can you share a little bit about the dynamics of the situation? So there was like a head girl who had been with him for a long time. I remember you explaining this to me.
It's called the bottom girl. So the girl that has stayed, and like the motto on the street is you need to stay down with your abuser, your partner, whatever you want to call it. And staying down means staying with them from beginning to end and never leaving. And it's basically the girl who's been there the longest that has earned the most respect, and basically is a madam. I want to say, and a madam is just somebody that helps the trafficker and is also a trafficker, but they're under the same amount of manipulation and terror that we are, but they're just I guess a little bit more used to it. They're usually in it for years at a time, and it doesn't seem abnormal to them than it would to somebody else. But yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's kind of the dynamics of it. A lot of it was, I know times that I had to choose if I wanted to eat or if I wanted to sleep. Because, I mean, like I said, we'd be out from 7 a.m. till midnight. Once in a while, he'd come around and bring me something to eat. But then he would come and pick money up for me. And he never beat on me because I watched him beat the other women. And so I never wanted to upset him or disobey him to where he would start beating on me. He raised his hands a few times at me, but he never struck at me. I've been slapped before, but I've never been beaten, punched, or any of that stuff. So,
and this guy, he was a real loser. Like I'm actually remembering now, right towards the end of the entire situation, the organization in Houston that was helping locate her, I actually found one of this guy's Facebook accounts, and don't ask me like you guys like, what is his Facebook? It's gone. I mean, he removed the Facebook account, but he had multiple Facebook accounts, and one of them, he had multiple things that were public. And he actually posted several videos. I actually saw photos of Hadassah in that Facebook account, and 1 or 2 videos. But he actually posted videos of a few of the girls, and in the videos, the girls were very drugged. They were high or something, were stumbling, and he would literally abuse them on the camera, and they shared this on his Facebook. I remember one girl, he asked her, you know, where am I taking you tonight? Where am I taking you? You tell in his own, I mean, his language was actually kind of hard to understand sometimes, but asking her where she was going that night and what she was going to do for him. And she said where she was going, to the Bissonnette. And it was really, I made it through one of the videos. I did not make it through the others because I kept thinking that this is what was happening to Hadassah. And honestly, guys, just like I wrote in my post talking about that we were, you know, the post introducing that we were going to do this video, I literally, like, every minute that she was gone, in my mind, was like another minute of trauma that she was experiencing. And I remember watching those videos, Hadassah, and just thinking like, oh my gosh, this is what's happening. And I literally could not find you fast enough. I know that your grandmother felt helpless and powerless, and your mom did, and your dad. And I remember the conversations that we would have with each other and with people in Houston and Detective Wood in Parkersburg, and just how helpless we felt. And we felt like we were so close a few times. And actually, the night that you walked away miraculously, I want you to share that. We actually, because your burner phone was on, we actually knew where you were. I knew the neighborhood that you were in. But then I don't remember what happened, but you ended up walking away. So why don't you share that whole night? What?
Absolutely. So it was July 4th, 2017. And that day, it was July 3rd, the day that before I ran off. And that day it was probably about 96 degrees outside, and I was in Dallas, Texas. I'm not even sure where in Dallas. And I've been walking the streets all day. And I had heat rash from my thighs up to my stomach. And I just remember walking, and I was in so much pain, and I was in blistering pain. Like, it was awful. And I ended up getting in the car, and I was sitting in the car, and I just remember texting a couple of numbers to find out if it was my mom's number, because I couldn't remember it. So I tried a few of them, and then finally I got a text back from my mom, and she said, "Who is this?" And I called her while they were in the gas station, and I told her, I said, "Listen, I can't talk to you. It's not safe for me to talk to you right now. Please don't have anybody call the phone, etc." But in that moment, I just remember looking up in the sky, and you know, I never thought about God. I never cared about God, because I thought God's the one who did this to me. So I was angry at God. And so I pictured a hand just coming down and scooping me up and just picking me up and holding me. And at that moment, I had this peace that things were going to be okay. I just contacted my mother. Something was going to happen. And that night, I would think it was 3 o'clock in the morning. It was pouring down the rain. And I ran outside and hopped into a vehicle, because there was nothing open on the streets. I just remember seeing just closed down laundromats and etc. And I ended up running into a guy who was driving his truck. He took me to a motel, and the next morning I was rescued by Kat. And she brought police officers. And
let me just interrupt right here, because I'll never forget when your mom called me and said, she called me, like, she's in I think you were in the hotel at that point. And then I got Kat, and I was crying. I was like, "Kat, we have her. She's in a hotel. Can you go to her?" And I remember I was talking actually to my aunt in Dallas too, seeing if she would go to you, because she's a nurse. But she was much further away than Kat was, and Kat was like, "I'll go get her." And I just remember just like, I was like a mess, because it was done. Like, it felt like, I mean, it wasn't done till Kat had you in the car,
right.
but it was done. And then when she got you, she's like, "What do you want me to do with her?" She's like, "I can take her to a shelter, or I can bring her to you." And I was like, "You can bring her to me." And I was like, "Yes, bring her to me." And I tell you, Kat French, when you watch this, thank you for all that you do.
Absolutely.
And for bringing Hadassah through the night to me. I will never, ever forget that. You are a true abolitionist, and I love you.
We watched, me and Kat watched fireworks going off when we were on our way. It was awfully amazing. It was great. I always remember that. And yeah, so I showed up at your doorstep.
Yeah, you did.
And
you were here for 6 months. Share, we were at IHOP, and guys, that was kind of crazy too. Do you remember, like, they had a policy at IHOP where they wouldn't put you on the cameras?
Right.
Like, because she would
not let me do anything.
Yeah, so she was here at the House of Prayer in Kansas City, and just getting some ministry, and lots of people loving on her. But it was secret that she was here, so I didn't share on Facebook. She wasn't on Facebook at the time. But at IHOP, because it's live streamed, and we're the most watched live stream in the world still, I remember that, she couldn't be on the cameras. And so all the security and the camera crew knew to, if Hadassah went in the front, to get the cameras off of her. And we're talking like there's like hundreds and hundreds of people at IHOP. So I'm like, how do they even know? Like, so
yeah, how to do this.
Yeah, share what it was like emotionally being here during that time.
It was hard, because I guess I still wasn't really taking in what happened, and I just like wanted to be free, and I wanted to go do whatever, and I was still very, very broken. I so wanted to be healed so badly. I forced it upon myself instead of actually going through the healing process. And because of that, I mean, Rebecca, you probably, I know you remember I went through some severe depression.
Yes.
I was in the bed for months at a time. It's crazy. Like I'm still looking back right now and I can't believe that. I would literally do nothing. My room, poor Rebecca. Oh gosh, she'd
I'm
walk
like a
in and
clean
be
freak,
like,
and Emma's or Hadassah's room was like, pfft. But you know what? Like it was okay. There were times when Hadassah cleaned it up, and when she cleaned it up, it was cleaned up. And I didn't even really care about that. I remember when she first got to the house, we had to take you to the emergency room and get you, you know, medically taken care of and all of that. I remember you were very thin. And I literally, guys, just fed her. I went to a friend who's a naturopath doctor. He gave her some anxiety stuff, some natural stuff for anxiety. And I was like, what do I feed her? What do I do? And he
oh
was
yeah,
like,
strict
protein,
diet,
protein. Yep. So I got everything protein and fed her and cooked and crock pot. And but I remember like a couple weeks in, you're like, I can't do this anymore. I need some Taco Bell. So
Yeah.
some of the normal Hadassah was coming out, but yeah, I just, she slept and slept and slept and slept, and then was doing pretty good for a minute, and then fell into a deep depression. And yeah, like it was very, very sad and heartbreaking to watch what she was going through, and then what some things that happened while she was here. And you know, like I felt like I didn't know how to rescue Hadassah. I felt like we had rescued Hadassah, who really rescued herself, let's be real. She was brave enough to walk away when he left and the girls fell asleep. But I think the Lord totally allowed that to happen so that you could escape. But so we rescued Hadassah, but I didn't know how to rescue her heart and her mind. And
oh yeah.
yeah.
I absolutely hated myself. I thought to myself, I remember I'm always going to be that girl. I'm always be that mom. I'm always going to be that sister. I'm always going to be that daughter. Like how have I gotten to this point? Why am I here? Is this real? And it was just like so unbelievable, because I'm like any other normal human being. I grew up and I have dreams, and I had dreams to be a missionary, and I had dreams to be a veterinarian, and never in my life did I think I was going to grow up to become something completely opposite. And so that was the devastating part that took a toll in my life.
I mean, you gave up.
I did.
And went home. And share with us, this is where, I mean, it was like round 2 almost towards the end. It was very, very scary. The last few months she was
it was awful.
Go ahead and share. So you went home. I actually will never forget. We sat on my couch before you left, and I had Hadassah. Do you remember this, Hadassah? Like on a piece of paper, I was like, if you go home and like do what you did before, where will you be in a year? And if you go home and you did these things, which were positive things, like, you know, going to school, and all, then where will you be in a year? And I remember her writing down where she would be in both scenarios, but she said, quite honestly, I'm probably going to do this. Like, you know, the stuff that she did before. And I was like, so then she left, went home, and it spiraled very, very quickly.
Yeah. So, with my mental illness, like we tried to get that treated, and I honestly feel like I needed more help than you know you could give. So
yes.
and that
now I would have had you go to Alabama then. Like in hindsight, I'm like, what was I thinking having her here? Maybe for like a week or something, but so I felt like I prolonged your process of healing. I regret this day.
You just wanted to love me. It's okay, because you know now I'm here, and you know I have something to tell about, you know. But it was crazy. I didn't get the help that I mentally needed, so I was very mentally sick. I had severe PTSD. I came home and I went right back to what was familiar. And I was called and called a lot of names and bullied a lot. Man, I remember that, Rebecca. There was tons of people that just hated my guts. And
are you talking about like towards the end? I was getting messages from people saying that you were going to end up dead. I mean, I was legit getting messages from people.
Yeah.
It was,
People
but that was more towards the end. That was about a month before we got you out of there. It was.
Well, before then, I would get bullied and stuff, and I would get called names before I started even on my heavy drug addiction. So a few months in, my coping skill became using drugs. And so I started using meth, and I used it one day, and then it felt really good. And I was like, man, I don't feel like a piece of crap, like a worthless person anymore. So now I'm going to go now, and I'm going to get high, and I'm going to feel better. And so I did, and I would get high on a daily basis.
And you were so paranoid during that time. And guys, like, yes, my brother died of an overdose, but I literally am still learning about the world of addiction and drugs just in the last few years, being kind of thrust into that. I've worked with troubled young people for over 20 years, but all kinds of populations, and never really honestly like the addiction population. So I remember you would video call me and you were so scared about all of these different things. And I was like, but Hadassah, and I would try to reason with you, not knowing that you were struggling with meth, and that's the result of meth is paranoia. Yeah, it was
right,
so
absolutely,
wild journeying that whole thing with you.
Absolutely. And being on methamphetamine and having paranoia and having an hallucinogen like that, it causes you to doubt yourself very easily. So in this period of time, I started hanging out with some users, and they were pretty bad. They ran and still run a stolen car operation in Parkersburg, West Virginia. And I was finding out about their little stolen car thing, and they were getting upset about it. And so one of my dear friends who I was very close with, the one that introduced me to dancing in the first place, she I guess I've been told this. I don't know how true it is. She, I guess, was doing heroin as well as doing meth, and she drugged my methamphetamine with heroin. And I think I just about started to go into an overdose. I remember that day. It was crazy. And I don't know. She was very homicidal and suicidal herself. So to this day, I don't know if it was meant to overdose me on purpose, or if it was to just screw me up really bad. I have no clue. I won't get into the details of how I know this stuff for sure, but I'm going to leave that to myself. Yeah. And so later on, I don't know, I kept staying in this drug world. And it was crazy because actually one night I had a Christian woman's book my grandmother gave me, and I remember picking up and holding it, and I'm about to say his name. Shayla was like, hey, my God killed your God. And I kind of just like, so it got very evil and very a lot of bad spiritual warfare was going on at that point. And I couldn't even believe what I heard with my own ears. Like, did someone just say that to me? Like, that was weird. So I'd wake up, and I started feeling really sick and really weird. And I'd find needle marks on my body, and I still have pictures of them to this day.
I still have those photos too that you sent me.
Mm-hmm. And so I had no clue what was going on. I was being told by multiple different people that I was being shot up with drugs. And of course, with the methamphetamine and the paranoia and my PTSD all together, I went into a like 3-hour panic attack. Yeah.
You went
And
into
so,
multiple frenzies during that time. It wasn't just that one time, I don't think. I mean, it was multiple times.
oh yeah, it was multiple times. I even, I don't, I'm not going to say his name, but he used to be an IV user, and he was sober at the time. And he came over to my grandma's house and he looked at the markings behind my knee where the needle marks were, and he confirmed to me those were needle marks. So that's another that's why I'm able today to be able to confidently say that, because when I was on drugs, it was very questionable from a lot of people whether I was being whether I knew what reality was, and
I
this is
remember this. I remember like talking
yeah.
to you crying because you were like, but do you believe me? And I remember, do you remember me saying to you, I said, Hadassah, yes, I believe you, but it doesn't matter if I believe you. What matters is we get you safe. We need to
Yeah.
get you safe. We need to get you out of there into a safe place. And this is when I started with the whole, Alabama thing. And you did
Oh
not
yeah.
want to hear it at that point. Threw the phone on me well, not on me, but maybe at your mom a few times.
Yeah, I was not having it. And so I finally had enough when one day things started feeling really weird. My paranoia got super high, and I was making spaghetti in the kitchen, and a male came up behind me and he whispered in my ear and he told me, "You're going to die soon." And at this time, I'm talking to the police and sending police information, and I'm pretty sure the abuser that I was staying with knew that I was talking to the police. And I'm pretty sure that if I wouldn't have ran away that night from that area, I don't think I would have been here.
I just kept praying, and I know so many did. Your grandmother, I remember praying on the phone with your grandmother and your mom, like, Lord, my prayer was just spare her, God, just spare her life until she gets to the place where she's willing to go. And it was glory the day that you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. Because this place
Right.
is amazing. Again, thank you, Kat French, just for giving me all the information on these wonderful programs for rehabilitation and restoration of victims of human trafficking. And my heart was drawn
Absolutely.
to the place that Hadassah is at now. Can I say the name of the place? Let's not.
I don't know if I'm,
Let's not.
yeah, just
So
for
the place that she's at now, and yeah. So why don't you share, like, you left and you go to this place and share with us how the Lord began to transform your life. This is the best.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, after nagging and nagging them for I think about a week, they finally accepted me and into this program. And let me remind you guys, I'm 100 pounds soaking wet. I mean, y'all probably saw the picture earlier of the comparison, and I mean, I look awful. And honestly, to this point, I'm scared to death. I'm almost positive that someone's going to come and kill me. It's a lot of different things. So I ended up getting to the program, and the lady that picked me up, just the first thing she said was, "I don't know why I picked you. There's a couple of people ahead of you, but I picked you for a reason. So you better finish this. You better do this." And at first I just didn't care what she had to say. I was just like, whatever, I'm getting in a car with some crazy stranger. And then they took my phone. So that was traumatizing.
But you knew you were going to lose the phone.
I know, I was mad. So, it was for the best. And so I remember getting there, and it was the scariest thing, because I've never been in a group home before, and I've never been in a program. And this was not a rehab. I think you kind of said it.
It's a restoration house. Yeah, it's a restoration program house, family house, gorgeous family house. For the restoration of victims of human trafficking. They do have a 90-day kind of entry program where girls, not all the girls come in addicted to drugs, but they will detox them. They stabilize their medications. They kind of like just literally in all possible ways stabilize them before they move them into the main program. And there's horse therapy. I mean, this place is incredible, and it's free. It's free, guys. And that was I always kind of cringe, now just knowing about body brokers, people that literally sell people to drug rehabilitation programs. So when a program is free, I'm like, now we can have a conversation. Not that there's not programs that, you have to pay that are amazing.
Right.
But whenever a program like that, with the amount of resources, beauty, stability, everything is offered as a gift, a free gift, I know that that's going to be a good place. The place that I was in, Hadassah, when I was in a crisis pregnancy as a teenager, the maternity home was a Christian maternity home and it was free. And just based on that experience, people that are just literally volunteering their time to love you, they're not getting paid, they're
It's genuine.
losing. Yeah, they left their homes and cities and stuff to come and love on you. It's just a testimony. So, all right, go ahead.
So, I get there and 4 weeks in, I'm ready to leave. I'm like packing my bag saying, I'm leaving this place. This is ridiculous. I wasn't getting my way. I was protesting, saying I'm 20 years old. I don't have to listen to this stuff. And thinking that I could go home and just make everything perfect. And kind of reality kind of settled in and I ended up staying. But I remember the first few weeks were very scary for me. My mental health was still, just because I was sober for a few weeks didn't mean my mental health was back. And my PTSD and the paranoia was worse as ever. I was scared to death that somebody was going to come after me. I remember checking my body in the shower every night when I took a shower to make sure there wasn't any needle marks on me. The PTSD was awful. And so I went through tons of therapy. We got cognitive behavioral therapy. We have dialectical behavioral therapy, as well as just regular talk therapy. And, and then we have our horse therapy, and then there's structure. And I didn't have a lot of structure.
Celebrate Recovery too. You guys were in that.
Right. We do the Celebrate Recovery. And I found God. I found God like I've never found before. One night, one of the staff members said, we're going to have an all quiet night. And so everybody's not allowed to talk. Well, everybody was talking that night. I'm the only one who obeyed and just what was quiet. And so I said, you know what? Since I'm going to obey, I'm going to read in the Bible about obedience. And that was the journey, the first step in journey into finding out who God really is. And so I kept reading the Bible. I went through, I had some ups and downs in this program. I went through a state of depression, but I got pulled out of that state of depression and pushed forward. But God just kept saying, Hadassah, you're supposed to do more. You're supposed to do more. You're supposed to do more after this. And I honestly and truly believe that God has restored my mental health. God has restored, it is restoring, in the process of restoring my relationship with my son. I haven't seen my son in 1 year and 3 months, so that's about to change in just a few days, which is glory be to God. And honest to God, it's amazing. I have a vehicle now. I'm about to have an apartment. I've had an opportunity to save up a lot of money from being in this.
And this apartment is in Alabama in the program. The second or the third phase of treatment is there's apartments on the property. They're absolutely stunning apartments, and like it's like luxury basically. And so they move these apartments, they get a vehicle, they get a job, and they're still getting the therapy and everything that they need, the support system they need to be successful.
And I have not had a phone in 1 year and 3 months. So that was
Praise
also, yes, I did not need that. And so things just started changing about me. I stopped listening to rap music. I started listening, and still, you can ask my mom, every time I get in the car, I change it straight to Christian radio station. And I just started to put positive things into my life and be positively into my life. And God just kept taking care of me through everything. And now I'm able to say that I have a relationship with God, and He is restoring my life. He has restored my mental health. He is in the midst of restoring my relationship with my son. And God is all great. He's all powerful, and He is graceful. Can I get an amen on that? He is graceful. And I couldn't be more blessed than I am now. My life is starting to become better than it was now than it was even before I got trafficked.
Yeah. You know what I thought today? Thank you for saying that. I thought, there's the whole concept of recovery. And, but I feel like sometimes, recovery, like in its very definition, means you've recovered the ground that you lost. So you're recovering what was lost. But girl, there's a whole other realm, if you will, of overcoming and like going
it's a victim
past,
surviving and then thriving.
yes.
And I'm
And
on my way
girl,
to thriving.
you are on your way to thriving. I heard, like I shared with you, Hadassah shared her testimony at a church. I saw the recording of it. And as I was listening to her, I was remembering all of the accusations, all of the things that people were saying about her and the messages I was getting about, you know, she's going to end up dead and like all of these things, people accusing her and, you know, why are you even helping her? She's not worth anything. She talks bad about you and all of these things, everyone trying to convince me to just let her go. And now here she is, not just recovering the ground that was lost, but soaring past that and soaring past those that accuse her. I mean, the Lord loves to take the weak and broken things and in the midst of brokenness and confound the wise, demonstrate his strength, his glory, his ability to deliver and heal, not just, you know, modification of behavior. Anyone can modify their behavior and be medicated. Anyone can. And medication is great. Hadassah knows I support medication. But anybody can do that. But the Lord is like, now watch what I can do.
Can do,
And
yes.
that is happening in your life, Hadassah. And it happened in my life. And he's amazing.
One of the things that honestly helped me heal the most is forgiveness. Forgiving the ones who have abused me and have put a lot of trauma into my life. But that is also me asking for forgiveness from people that I have harmed throughout my addiction. Because this is not a victimless situation. It's not just me being the victim. My family was the victim. My son was the victim to addiction, to the trafficking, to because what happened to me affected the people around me. So, you know, forgiveness became a big part of me. And my favorite verse when I first got to that program was John 8:7. For any one of you who's without sin, cast the first stone. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna tell you why. It was not a good reason at the time why I love that verse. It was more of a don't judge me. Look at, you know, and now I'm able to look at it from a different light. But
look at it as like I have sinned too, so I can't cast the first stone.
Right, exactly. So at first it was, oh, well, you can't judge me. And now it's like, Hadassah, since you have been shown mercy, you show mercy on others. You show grace on others. And
it's so interesting. Every time we go to the Lord, like about a situation, we can be victims. I mean, you and I have both been victims in different ways. But it's like when you go to the Lord and he begins that process, he eventually and sometimes very quickly brings it back to you. You know, and then works on what's happening in you. And sometimes ouch, but then, you know, that's where the transformation comes.
Right. And so also, sorry, I'm like picking off hair off the floor that I've like ripped.
Well, that's okay. My daughter Emma was texting me earlier and I was like, and she was like, can you come get me? And I was like, oh my goodness, no. So I was like working that out and, you know, she's situated now. So it's okay. Things happen. Yeah. Life happens. You drop I'll text you.
So also, I want to give out this number. I feel like this is a good time to do that. If you have anyone or know anyone that is being trafficked or is being abused, or if you suspect of anyone selling their girlfriends, their children, etc., the number to call would be 888-3737-888. So 1-888-3737-888. And I just really want that number to be out there. For anybody else who needs help. If you're in a situation and you're watching this and you need help, go ahead and call that hotline. I'm sure they can get you hooked up with the right place. Get a hold of me. I'm sure Rebecca is ready to be a warrior for you, just like she was me, and I'm here to do the same. So absolutely.
Yeah, and would you also speak quickly to the people who are watching this who have a heart for this issue that don't really know what to do? I mean, speak to them.
So what I have to say to those, find an organization, get connected, get plugged in. There is Human Trafficking organizations are starting to rise and pop out of the ground right now, with the high demand, because it is becoming a more noticeable thing now, and it's
It
finally
is like right now, Hadassah, I said in a video earlier, the one that you weren't in, that whole video situation earlier.
It's a number one thing on social media.
Yeah, it is slavery today. There's more slaves today than there has been any time in history. But it's not the slaves that we had in history. There are some labor, there's definitely human trafficking in the labor industry, if you will. But the majority of slaves today on the planet are victims of sex trafficking. We're talking children, boys and girls.
Absolutely.
And even some men, although I think that's very rare. It's usually boys, girls, and women. It's happening in your neighborhoods in suburbia. It's not always the kidnap story. There are girls
happening in Parkersville, West Virginia.
Boyfriends,
let alone
girls.
Absolutely everywhere. So don't. This is another thing too. This is real. I've had so many people say that really happens, and let me tell you, it's happening in your backyard. I don't care how small of a town you live in, it's happening, and it's there, and it's sad to say that, but it is, and you know, our responsibility is to recognize that and be aware of that, and really just sharing and spreading awareness is one of the number one things you can do to help prevent that from happening, because this stuff wasn't surfacing when I was trafficked. I had no clue what to look out for, what the signs were, and now a lot of young girls and young boys are now able to get that education. It's now starting to be taught in college classes.
Yeah, there's a whole abolitionist movement that encompasses everything. The organizations that solely bring awareness, like Exodus Cry, they make documentaries on human trafficking. Then you have the abolitionists that are actually doing the rescue. And then you have abolitionists that are rehabilitating. Anyone that gets involved in the fight, if you are supporting an organization that is on the ground bringing awareness or fighting, you are an abolitionist. We all can be abolitionists in bringing awareness, in advocating, in supporting organizations. If you guys, I mentioned this in the video earlier, if you guys want to support an organization, the organization that Hadassah is at is amazing. You can message me about that, and I will figure that out with them, how you can get connected with them and give to what they're doing. I also have a friend that I mentioned earlier, Matt Nokus, who is doing what's called Moto Vision. He is on a bike as we speak right now, going across Asia, focusing on the Silk Road area, bringing awareness to Asia about the human trafficking issue, and raising funds and giving those funds to organizations on the ground that are actually rescuing and rehabilitating. So he's got a fundraising thing going on that he's asked me to partner with him in getting the word out. So I will be posting information about that in the next week, private messaging people. There are also YWAM Youth with a Mission, has multiple houses throughout Asia and other parts of the world that literally rescue. There are people that go in and purchase girls and purchase children with the purpose of rescuing them. There are men that do that. There are men that give their time temporarily or on a permanent basis to go and rescue girls and children in this way. It is incredible what is happening in the abolitionist movement. And look at the fruit of that. Look at Hadassah's life now. Look at how she's being transformed. And Hadassah, share with us, where is this thing going for you? I mean, I can see years out, you know, I can dream and imagine all kinds of things, but where is Hadassah's story going in this next season?
So really, I just want to be able to share my story with anybody and everybody, and kind of just give out awareness. And I really want to help other individuals where they're in a part of life right now where no one believed them, or they felt like no one believed them, and I want them to know that they are real. This is real, and I believe them. I have every reason to believe them, because this stuff is very real. And so my goal is to hopefully show and get people started on the path that I got started on with God and restoration and redemption.
So you want to work in rescue and rehabilitation eventually. I mean, we've talked about this. We've talked about going to the streets together one day, which I'm excited about.
Yes, absolutely.
So, all right. So I think, Hadassah, did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
No, ma'am. I think that's about all I got.
I think that's all you got. You got a lot more, but we did a lot in this video. So thank you guys. Again, we apologize for the difficulties with the technology earlier, but my friend is amazing and hooked me up with Zoom so that I could do this interview with Hadassah and do future interviews and just bypass Facebook Live, because obviously it's problematic. So thank you for joining us. I would ask that you would share this video. You can host a watch party after you view this video. Get this video into your groups. You can spread awareness. You can be an abolitionist by clicking share. I will go ahead and probably change the title of this video after this, just so that people that don't know us, when they read the title, it'll be a little bit more descriptive. But yeah, go ahead and share, and just thank you guys. And you want to give that number one more time? Those,
yeah, 1-888-3737-888.
Yep.
1-888-3737-888.
Thank you, Hadassah. So Hadassah will be going back to her program here in a couple of days, and but you can message her if you'd like. I would prefer you would call the number or message me, and let's not overwhelm Hadassah in this next season of transition that's coming for her. If you want to be connected with her, I'm not saying don't. I'm just asking for her sake, let's not overwhelm her with messages and things while she's getting ready for this next exciting part of your journey. So I love you, girl.
I love you too. I'm glad that we could do this.
Yes. All right. I'm going to go ahead and figure out how to stop this video. And so that it still shares on Facebook. This is my first Zoom. Okay, just end meeting. And oh, right there. All right, bye guys. Have a good night.
Bye. See you later.
End meeting for all.